Okay, here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, and Instagram is telling people that we are just starting our live video.
Yay!
Yay!
And we're together.
We are together. It's our first one together.
This is our first one together. Yes, it sure is. Yeah.
And so bear with us because, well, one, just so you know, we're at our camp. Which is why I look like this.
And I just always look fabulous.
She always looks fabulous. But that's just the way that works. So, Today we wanted to talk a little bit about our June read for our Biblio talk, which was for June, because June is Pride Month, we picked
Pride Month.
Felix Ever After by Kacen, Callender. I think so. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Which is a YA novel, and it is about a young trans boy in New York. Yeah. And he's 17, and he is falling in love for the first time. So, we both read it. I just finished it yesterday. Do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first? It's nice and fresh in your brain.
So it's a great book. It is. It's a good story. It's a good love story. It leans into a couple of romance tropes, but good ones, like decent ones, like not annoying ones. But it is definitely geared towards teenagers. Which a YA book.
It's YA, so that's fair.
Should be.
That's fair.
Should do that. So
like the 40-year-old white ladies are kind of like,
yeah,
it's nice.
We were talking about it yesterday, and I was saying like it's a solid 3.
Yeah.
For 40-year-old white ladies.
Yeah.
Heterosexual white ladies.
Yeah.
And it is a solid 5 of a book for the audience that it's written for its messaging, for the way in which the story is told. I actually thought the writing was really very good. It's a quick, easy, accessible read. I also think that if you love New York City, or if you want to go to New York City, or if you're like really fascinated with that culture and that place, that this book, the author Kacen, does an excellent job of description without getting like overboard, because if you don't know yet, I really hate overboard description of place. So like,
but if you're familiar with the city, it's definitely also, like you're gonna like, it's gonna conjure up all of those like those places that like you've been and are familiar, and so you can really like sort of see these characters in those spaces, you know, living their lives, which is kind of great.
And I really like so Felix, the main character, is in art school for a summer art program, and I really enjoyed that particular piece as well. Only, you know, as a Midwestern girl, that's not like something that we really had access or experience.
Not really,
with.
not like how it is in this book anyway.
And so that was kind of a fun, like semi fantasy piece of it for me. Like the idea that, you know, you could go to a summer school program at like this really fancy school, and that's just not something that would have been available to me as a kid and in high school. So that was really good. But Hattie, why don't you say a little bit about?
So it really is. I feel like if I were a teenager, like right now, or even like when I was a teenager, I think if I'd picked this book up and read it, I'd have been like, this is just amazing. Like there's something very sort of amazing and deep about this. He's really sort of struggling with this identity thing, you know, and how he's going to live that out, and how he's going to figure that out, and sort of like who he allows to tell him who he is, which he really sort of struggles with that throughout the whole book, and coming to this place where it's like he wants to know who he is.
And he's the only person who gets to define who he is, which is also, I think, a really important... I mean,
for all teenagers,
right?
I think that's
for even the rest of us too. Sometimes,
sometimes, absolutely. Like we're all sort of like you know, learning about who we are and who we want to be. I think that's a big piece of it as well. But I honestly think that if I had read this even when I was a teenager, you know, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago almost now, but I get a little older than I think sometimes.
Aren't we both?
Yeah. But I think it would have really resonated. Like it would, because he's really struggling with those things that almost all teenagers sort of struggle with. That finding your place, figuring out what it is to be in love. I think that was like a huge theme.
Right.
You know, he kind of starts out being like, this is like what I feel like I'm missing. Like I've never been in love. So I've never been kissed kind of a situation. Like that old movie, the Drew Barrymore movie. Never been kissed.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Our younger viewers won't know what that
I was there with her.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, I digress. But I do think like he's kind of confronting these things for the first time, and I think as teenagers we are all in that place where we're confronting these things for the first time. And I think it's just written in this really sort of like modern teenager way, in the sense that like a lot of the interaction was online. Like the conversation stuff, which is sort of like the 40-year-old lady. I'm just like, are we really having this conversation over Instagram?
But yeah, they are.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it seemed like, okay.
I mean, they did eventually talk on the phone, too. There was actual talking
there was
on a phone, which
on a phone call, which
I was surprised by.
That doesn't usually, but it was also sort of like this momentous thing.
Right, it was a huge deal.
Like, I spent literally half of my waking hours on the telephone when I was in high school.
That's true.
Like, at least, like, so much that my parents bought me my own phone line. Because it was so bad.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. I had my own phone, and I had my own phone line because I was tying up the phone so much that Dad couldn't get his phone calls. Yeah, that's a true story. You were there, but you forgot.
I was there, but
as you can
tell, I did not have the same social life.
I basically got like cauliflower ear from being on the phone so much. That's what wrestlers get, in case anybody didn't know that. From wearing the... Again, I digress. But...
Yes.
That part, like, for me, as the 40-year-old, I'm just like, are we really doing this? But I do think it was so, like, true to the experience of teenagers right now in this, sort of social media heavy existence that we're all kind of navigating.
Yeah. And one of the parts, or one of the things I like that resonated with me now as a 40-year-old too, was so Felix goes to this kind of like a community center for the queer community, and he is going to like this kind of like gender questioning workshops, and I think many times in that sort of a place, or in that place, he is acknowledging like the huge diversity that does exist within the LGBTQ queer community, across race and gender and socioeconomic and age and like that questioning still that happens around identity. And I think we forget sometimes as adults that we still do that. Like, I was just telling Hattie like the other day that I'm like in the middle of an existential crisis of like, what are we doing here? What is the point of all of this? Like that we still have those moments as adults as well. And Felix was able to see that and experience that in the midst of this really intergenerational, diverse community that unfortunately not everybody has access to, for many, many, many different reasons. But so I really appreciated that. I really appreciated the lengths that Kacen went to make sure that was really clear, and as like such giftedness in the midst of that. In the midst of those struggles. So
yeah. And also just side note on that, I think another great part about that, like when the author sort of describes the people in that room, there was also a great diversity of gender identity in that room, which was really great. I mean, maybe that was sort of didn't need to be stated, but I do think for the main character Felix, that in and of itself was really profound, because he is sort of struggling with like how to identify himself and sort of being in this place where these other people have so many different sort of gender identities that it kind of opened up, like for, I don't want to give anything away, but it sort of opened up more possibilities. The idea that there's more possibilities for Felix in a way that I think before he may not have quite realized that there were other possibilities other than what he'd already kind of thought of in his own head. So
and they talk a lot about him researching on the internet, and I think again for us. We're like, that wasn't a thing in high school.
No, we didn't research anything in high school
on the internet. So, but that there is such a wealth and such a sometimes maybe overwhelming amount of wealth, but of story, of people's stories and people's. And I do think Kacen Callender also does a nice job of holding in tension that space of like, and this is like such a. Anyway, I remember as a teenager, I did this too. Let me just put it that way. But like, I want to be labeled. I want to label, but I don't want to label. No labels.
No, I want this.
But it's so much more. But articulation is really helpful, and for both
back and forth.
Yeah, but and for both of us, and I think Callender lands on this for Felix as well, is that there is power in language. In having language for ourselves and for each other, and that we don't have to judge that. Like that's the problem. It's not the language that's the problem. It's not the label that's the problem. It's the value and the judgment that we put on top of those societally that is actually the problem with labels and having language to articulate our identities and who we are. So I just think that all of that is deeply universal, and the thing I read a lot of YA. Hattie does
I do not.
She does not. for very important reasons. She would be a very angry human being.
It would not be pretty.
But I do read a lot of YA, and what I do love about this is that it is so typical.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of representation is really important too, that it's not like this special story, that's only for particular people. It's just a really universal love story, young teen love story, and it's incredibly accessible and for everyone, and yeah, so I think that that's great, and I think both of us highly recommend it. It was a really quick read. I think you read it.
I literally read it on the airplane
in 3 hours.
Yeah, on my way here. I had like 15 pages to go when I landed. So
definitely recommend adding this to your list if you want just a nice quick romance read. And
I did want to mention just one other thing about the sort of the universality of the themes, something we haven't touched on yet, but I think is super important for as teenagers especially, but even as adults, I think we struggle with this, is our relationship with our parents.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I forgot about that's a good No, that's a really good one.
Because he's really struggling with his parents for a couple different reasons. Again, I don't want to necessarily give anything away, but I think that is really, it's universal. And then when he sort of discovers some of the other characters who he thought he knew their story,
right.
But then he kind of discovers more about them and more about their story and about their relationship with their parents and so on and so forth. That everybody sort of struggles with their parents. Right. And it's not always what it seems.
Right.
I think we all struggle with that in so many different aspects of our lives that we think we know.
That comparison too, right?
Like, I've got it so much worse than these other people, and they've got it so good. So coming to sort of realizing that, like, okay, I do have my own struggles for sure. But some of that
that's valid,
and that's totally valid. I have my own struggles, but I also have these blessings, But then not assuming other people's stories, whether that's they're dealing with their parents or their financial situation or whatever that may be, right? And I think Kacen Callender does a good job of sort of pointing those things out, of not glossing over the problems and saying, oh, this is such a great thing, but really acknowledging that, like, okay, your parents can be supportive in some ways, but then also, rub you wrong and not be supportive in other ways. And like that's a struggle.
At least Felix's parent.
Right.
The main parent, who is the father in
this.
He
lives with his father.
Really a complexity as well.
Yes.
Which I also think sometimes in YA, particularly middle school even more so than YA, but really
it's kind of flattened.
Adults
sometimes.
Get really flattened out. And so like good, evil, very one-dimensional. And Callender does a really nice job of maintaining the complexity of adults in the midst of this as well. Even Jill,
and as parents, as parent, how complex and difficult that role can be.
Right.
Whether or not your kid is struggling with their identity or not in this sense, this LGBTQ situation that Felix finds himself in, of course.
Right.
But even like for parents who have kids who aren't necessarily struggling with that particular thing, have kids who are struggling with other things, and that's a complex,
or just kids in general.
Just
as a parent, just having children is just.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I think, I think you're right. Like, Callender does a really good job of not highlighting, because he's not the main character, but adding that complexity and that depth of character in there, that this isn't just a, good parent, bad parent thing, right? There is... He's struggling too.
Right.
Yeah. He has his struggles and the things that he's good at and the things that he's not good at. Yeah.
And the other thing Callender does a really nice job of, and this also happens sometimes in YA in middle school, is beating a dead horse with like themes or ideas. And I really think that it comes out, I think Callender does a really nice job of keeping those themes real as much as humanly possible within a contrived story.
Yeah.
And like, Felix is going through them in a real meaningful way and dealing with them in a real meaningful way without getting hit over the head with a stick for a really long time.
Yeah.
So it really is it's a very well written
book. It's absolutely like worth the read.
We'll just do this one more time.
There it is.
Felix
Ever After. I was like, what is it? Felix something. Felix Ever After.
Felix Ever After.
Felix Ever After. So,
But,
So, definitely recommend it.
Yep.
To anybody who just wants to, kind of venture forth into maybe something new or different, and definitely like.
And it's not a huge time suck.
No, it's really not.
So it's totally worth giving it a shot.
For sure.
So, are we good on that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So then, what I wanted to just mention is, July is coming up, and so hopefully our newsletter should be coming out in the next few days.
Hopefully,
end of the week, hopefully on Friday.
Beginning of the month for sure.
But beginning of the month for sure. And for July, we are doing beach reads.
Beach reads, yay!
You know, we're just gonna jump on that bandwagon.
Heck yeah.
That book bandwagon, and we do know the 2 books that we're gonna be reading.
Oh yes, we did. We figured them out. Should have reviewed that before we came on.
I actually know what they are.
Good.
Because for my beach reads, we are going to go full on beach read, romance novel, all the way there, and it's going to be full love story. Cannot remember who it's by, but we will figure that out. It comes out in the newsletter. You can check out the newsletter.
Yeah, check out the newsletter.
Subscribe to our
for the
newsletter,
actual title
and
and
you can
author.
get the title and author. And then for Hattie's, because Hattie,
the Thursday thing.
Yes, the Thursday Murder Club.
Thursday Murder Club.
Which is, if I remember correctly, I can't remember who it's by. I can see his face, but I don't remember. But it's about old folks' home in England, and they decide to solve murders.
To solve some mysteries.
So,
which, of course, my beach read is totally, like, mystery-based.
Super
like,
mystery.
that's what I'm going to be.
That's her kind of beach read.
That's my go-to.
So we're going to be reading both of those and doing Biblio talks throughout the month on those 2 books this next month.
Should be fun. This is going to be, like, a fun month for
Yeah.
It's, like, summer. We're relaxing. We're chilling. We're on vacation. Everybody should be on vacation.
Everyone should be on vacation.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
And reading, like, fun stuff.
Yeah. Summer is for fun reading.
It is.
But, so yeah, that's what, we're not sure what those dates are yet, but we'll get that out as we have it. And, yeah. Again, like and subscribe. And if you go to www.thebookwar.com, I think I may have got more W's in there than I needed to. And then you can just subscribe to our newsletter as well, and that just comes out once a month. We just do that once a month,
so we're not inundating you with stuff.
No, so anywho, thanks for watching, and we'll see you around, Book War community.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. If I can figure out how to stop it now. Hold on. Nope. Oh, there it is.